guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Landon and we are here again today for more. Yes, I hope that you guys enjoyed the video of the Hyung line yesterday. Today we're going to go over the maknae line of the Love Yourself Answer notes from the BU storyline. And like I said in the last video, these are a little bit longer, so I did separate these into two videos. And we're going to be going over Jimin, V, and Jungkook's notes today. So, did have a moment earlier, I was like, I don't know what's happening. I feel like that moment will be continuing now. But like I said in my last video, I will be compiling everything during one weekend coming up, going over the whole storyline before I do the webtoon. So, one more little heads up here. I am putting a trigger warning on here. I did see some of these tweets did have trigger warnings on there for thoughts of suicide and things of that nature. So, I'm not exactly sure what all we're going to be reading today, but just putting a general trigger warning on the rest of the video. Without any further ado, y'all, let's get it started in here. So, we're going to be starting off today with Jimin, July 28th, year 22, his first S note. I remained alone in the practice room again. It was past 12 and the train had stopped running. Truthfully, I was waiting for it to stop. Only then could I use the practice room totally alone. When we practiced together, my eyes were drawn only to my own insufficiencies. That's why I was restless. I was afraid too, but I wanted to do it, so I stayed by myself every night. Okay. As I spent my days this way, interestingly, the fear in my heart disappeared. Only the awareness that dancing was fun remained. For a long time, I believed that the small, weak, powerless me I had created in my mind was the real thing. When I danced, I ended up thinking only of the weight of my body or the length of my arms, the speed or strength that I could create. The me who danced was neither small nor weak. My skills improved as much as I practiced. The moments that I had been stuttering at first eventually connected. I was growing. It was just as much as a fingernail, but I was still growing. I became aware that I was actually a very talkative person. I felt that when I danced, I was spitting out all the things I couldn't say or hadn't said. When I started to dance for the first time, I started to feel like myself. So he's over here kind of saying he feels himself whenever he can dance. And that's the only true way he feels like he can express himself completely, which I totally get. Alright, we're going back a little bit now to May 16th, year 22. Hyung's house was in a very high area, a rooftop room of a dead-like house at the end of a narrow, winding alley, some distance walking from a larger street. That was Hyung's house. When I went into the house, which was only one room, Hyung bragged that it was at the top floor in a whole city, from which I could be seen all the places where we had grown up, laid out under our feet. As Hyung said, all sorts of things were visible from the rooftop room. The nearby train station could be seen, and along the train tracks, the containers were also visible. Namjoon Hyung was living in one of these, and if I moved my gaze a little more, the school we had all attended came into view. After finding the school, I lifted my head and looked at the other side of the city. At the foot of the mountain, there was a line of large apartment buildings. There was my parents' house. I had run away from the hospital without a word. My parents would have been contacted. Maybe they were looking for me now. I didn't have the confidence to see my parents face to face. I had left the hospital, but I couldn't yet go home. That didn't mean I wanted to go back to the hospital, but I had nowhere to go and no money. I had stood hesitantly and Hyung had told me to follow him, then led the way. The place we had arrived was here. Hyung's house. I returned my gaze to the apartment buildings. I had to go there eventually. I had to see my parents and tell them that I wouldn't go back to the hospital. I took a deep breath. It seemed like that thought alone would cause a seizure. Truthfully, I didn't trust myself to endure any place other than the hospital. I could be rushed to the hospital again. I was so afraid I couldn't stand it. So he just wants anything but to be in the hospital, which makes sense. Oh, is it the same day? Oh, this is the day before. Why are they doing this? Okay, the next one is Jimin, May 15th, year 22 from version E, which is just the day before this. So the day before going to Hobie's house. When I opened my eyes, Hyung was standing there. A familiar ceiling looked down at me within a familiar darkness. Startled, I tried to sit up, but he put a finger on his lips. Everyone was asleep, and my surroundings were quiet. Hyung immediately offered me a t-shirt, then jerked his chin towards the exits of the hospital. He's breaking them out. I can't. We all came together. He said that Namjoon Hyung was standing guard while Yoongi Hyung was buying time with the nurses. Jungkook and Taeyong would join us at the elevator shortly. At first, I didn't understand what he was saying. Hyung reached out a hand towards me, who was still in a daze. They're breaking this boy out. The day I left the hospital, I had dreamed of that day sometimes. I wanted to leave the hospital and meet my friends, to spend time with them laughing and talking the way we used to before, but now I didn't know. Was it a good idea to leave? My parents had hidden me in this place place and treated me like someone who didn't exist. People whispered that I had a mental illness. I didn't know if Ho Seok-young thought the same. Maybe he thought that I was strange, that spending time with me was uncomfortable. Nobody said that. Come on, we don't have time. Maybe because of Hyung's urging, the sound of the clock's second hand sounded strangely fast. Thump, thump. The sound of footsteps, like an auditory hallucination, came closer and closer to the hospital room. Hyung and I turned simultaneously to look at the door, then looked at each other. Hyung's hand remained in front of me. Am I getting him out of here? I love this. I love this dash. I love this. Okay, so that was Jimin. Let's move on now to V. All right, V. This is from S1, August 11th, year 22. Taehyung. As I started to turn around, I discovered small letters below an X. It was a short sentence scratched into the wall, one that said, "It isn't my fault." It was that kid. I hadn't seen her myself, and I didn't know her handwriting looked like. But somehow I knew. It seemed like a final greeting, saying that her leaving wasn't because of me. That the things that had befallen her weren't because I was a bad person. It seemed like it was telling me not to blame myself or torment myself or to be brave. When I came to my senses, I was in front of my house. From beyond the door, I could hear Nuna scream. I flung it open and went in. A familiar scene was laid out. I moved to block my father. I grabbed his arm and looked him right in the face. At first, he seemed to be shocked, but then he swung his fist. It knocked me out, not for the first time. Nuna's crying grew louder. My chin hurt. The smell of rusty metal came from my mouth. Even so, I didn't give up. I grabbed at my father's waist. He gave me an angry scream. He beat mercilessly at my back and shoulders, but I held on even tighter. It wasn't that it didn't hurt. It wasn't that I wasn't scared. But if I let go, the same daily cycle would repeat. I wanted to be different. I wanted to change it. No, I'm not like my father. I'm going to protect our family. Okay. Oh, that one's deep. That one's deep. Let's go on now to V number 2. That one was real deep, and I'm sure this is going to continue. May 2nd, year 22. Hyung, is that everything? You don't have anything else you're hiding from us? Our surroundings grew quiet all at once. All gazes were turned to me. I looked straight at Seokjin Hyung. Hyung looked back at me. His gaze was full of exhaustion and embarrassment, and a little bit of something pitiful. At the moment when I was about to press the issue again, someone grabbed my arm and stopped me. I didn't look, but I knew it was Namjoon. What does it have to do with you? You're not my real brother. I could feel Namjoon Hyung looking at me. I didn't lift my head and shook off his hand. I knew it too, that I was mad at Namjoon Hyung for no reason, repeating the words that I had heard Hyung say on the telephone. I said that I was angry, that I was upset. Hyung's words weren't wrong. I was barely a year younger than him. I wasn't his real brother. It was true that I should take care of myself. But even so, I was upset. I was even angrier that I had no words with which to refute it. I hoped that Hyung would understand how I felt. I'm sure he will. I'm sure. Taehyung, I'm sorry. Let's stop talking about this now. It was Seokjin Hyung who opened his mouth. It was Seokjin Hyung who called my name, who said he was sorry. Namjoon Hyung said nothing. What do you mean stop? Since it came up, let's talk about everything. You've something else you're hiding. I mean, it is important to get all the things out and stuff, but like, if he's not ready to talk about it yet, like, don't force it. Ugh. Let's talk outside, Namjoon Hyung spoke. Taking my arm again, I tried to shake him off again, but he tried to drag me out. I resisted and spoke, let me go. What right do you have to stop me? What do you know, Hyung? You don't know anything, but you think he's such a great guy, right? It was then he let go of my arm. The recoil made me stumble. No, it wasn't only recoil. At that moment, he let go of my arm. It seemed like all the things that had sustained me were cracking and splitting and crumbling down. Maybe I'd hoped that he would never let go of my arm, that he would never get angry and drag me out. Maybe I'd hoped that he would scold me as if he would to a real brother, as if to someone so close and precious that you can't step back. But Hyung let go of my arm. I just laughed. What's so special about being together? What are we to each other? We're all alone in the end. That was the moment that Seokjin hit me. Okay, so that's the moment in the video when he hit. Okay. God, that's such like an emotional scene too. I can only imagine like it all acting out. Like the second that he let go of the arm, it's like, it's not just him letting go, but it's like their connection and stuff all letting go together. Okay, not gonna get sad. All right, let's do V's last one. Taehyung, March 29th, year 22. So once again, year 22, this is the earliest from that date. It says, the gas station owner spit on the ground as he left. I laid down on the ground in the same position I'd crouched in. I had been doing graffiti on a back wall of the gas station only to get caught, and the owner had hit me while asking what I thought I was doing, drawing on someone else's wall. I rolled around on the floor. Getting it was both something I was used to and something unfamiliar. I'd started doing graffiti a long time ago. I took a spray can that someone had tossed away and tried drawing on a wall. I think it was yellow. I sprayed it, however, and then looked up at it. I looked at the clear yellow paint on the gray wall, then picked up another spray can. For a long time, I sprayed unthinkingly on the wall. Only when all the spray cans were empty did my hand stop. I threw the can away and stepped back. My breath came as if I had been running with all my might. He's like so into this. I didn't know what the colors on the wall meant. I didn't know what I had done or why I had done it, but I had done it, and I could guess that they were expressing my feelings. I had spewed my heart out onto this wall. At first, I thought it was ugly. I thought it was dirty. It was idiotic and useless and pitiful. I didn't like it. I rubbed at some of the wet paint with my hand. I wanted to erase it all. Instead of erasing it, I caked on other colors and mangled it into different shapes. I sat against that wall. It wasn't a matter of whether or not I liked it. It wasn't about whether it was beautiful or not. It was just me. When I stood up, I coughed. I spit blood out into my hand. Then I saw someone's hand pick up the spray can. I followed the line of that hand up until I saw a face. It was Namjoon Hyung. I laughed. I thought I was seeing a ghost. Hyung reached out a hand. I just looked up at him. Hyung took my hand and pulled me up. His hand was warm. He's like, bitch, what are you doing? And it's at the gas station where June works, so I'm guessing that's why June was there and whatnot. Okay, all right. All right, y'all, we have one more group left of these, and it is Jungkook. I feel like these are gonna be dark. They're a little bit longer. I think these were the ones that may have had the trigger warning, but let's see. All right, Jungkook, July 26th, year 22. When I looked back, the hospital was really far away. I could no longer see the bench where I had left the wildflowers, nor the window through which I used to watch the river with that kid. Upon reflection, that kid had been a space to breathe in the otherwise stuffy hospital life. As we sat on the hospital bench in the late afternoon and talked about this and that, before we knew it, the sun had set. I told her about playing in the hideout and going on vacation on the beach, and about walking all the way to the train station. She told me about the corners of the hospital, which windows you could see the river from, about which staircase to take to secretly climb to the roof. There was nothing she didn't know about in this hospital. So this must be a person that's been there for a while. Her hospital room was empty. Had she been discharged or moved to another hospital? I asked the nurses, but none of them could tell me. For some reason, a corner of my heart felt empty. I turned around and kept walking. In the distance, I could see the school. It seemed that most of the things I had told her about had to do with the Hyungs, and almost all the stories I told started with them. To me, who had been totally alone, the Hyungs had become my friends and family and my teachers. My story was contained within their stories, and I only existed inside my relationship with them. Okay, interesting. But at some point, I started to think like this, that there may come a day when they would no longer be at my side. I might go looking only to find them gone, without giving any reason, or maybe something even more could happen. I didn't know. I thought of that night, when the huge moon rose out of the sky, the world turned upside down, the headlamps I saw from an inverted view, the shape of the car then passed me and disappeared, the sound of the engine familiar for some reason. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but even so, I kept thinking about that moment. I thought he got hit, so I guess he didn't get hit. Oh, did Suga push him out the way? Something like that. That's why he came back to save Suga. All right, May 28th, year 19, so a couple years back. It said, Hyungs, what are your dreams? At my words, the Hyungs looked back. It's because I have to write a paper about future hopes. I hedged, but Seokjin Hyung opened his mouth to say, I don't know. I don't think I have a dream. If I have something I hope for, it's just to the extent of wanting to become a good person. Hyung cut himself off, seemingly embarrassed. Then Yoongi Hyung, who had been stretched out on the piano bench, spoke in a lingering tone. It's okay not to have a dream. I don't have one. I'm just going to become whatever. Everyone burst out laughing at these very Yoongi-like words. I'm going to become a superhero, saving the world from bad guys. Taehyung stood up on a chair and posed, stretching his arm up towards the sky, and Hoseok told him off, telling him to get down and saying that he would get hurt playing around like that. Then Hoseok added, I want to find my mom and live happily. Being happy is my dream. Hyung smiled so happily as he spoke. Then, are you unhappy now? And the one who asked that was Jimin. Hoseok said, is that how it works? And affected a ridiculously worded expression. And then he asked Jimin, what's your dream? Me? What's your dream? What's your dream? Oh, I love that. I love that reference. Okay. Jimin blinked, flustered, and then said, when I was in preschool, I wanted to be president, but I don't know what I wanted to be after that. Now, only Namjoon Hyung was left. Perhaps feeling everyone's gazes on him, Hyung shrugged and opened his mouth. I want to say something nice, but I don't really have a dream either. I just wish my part-time job paid more. I nodded and looked down at the paper. The paper on hopes for the future was divided into spaces for student and parent. What did I want to become? I couldn't think of anything to write. America's best superstar idol of the international world. All of it. You can be it all. You can be whatever you want to be. All right, y'all. The last note we're going to be reading here today. My poor throat is going to make it. Jungkook, April 11th, year 22, from his version of L. April 11th, year 22. I walked on the top of the rooftop railing. The building had been abandoned in the middle of construction. When I stretched one foot out into the air, the darkness bubbled up from the bottom of my foot. The night city spread dizzily out below the railings. Neon signs, the honking of horns, and smoky dust eddied in the darkness. For a moment, I felt dizzy with vertigo. I stretched out my arms to regain my balance, and I thought it was only one step. If I took one more step, everything would end. Oh. I leaned my body a little more towards the darkness. The darkness that had started at the end of my feet now came up as it devoured my entire body. When I closed my eyes, a dizzying city and sound and fear all disappeared. I stopped breathing. Then I slowly leaned my body further. I didn't have any thoughts. No one came to mind. I didn't want to leave anything behind. I wouldn't remember anything. This was just the end. That was the moment at which my phone rang. My clarity returned as if woken from a distant dream. My dull senses returned in an instant. I pulled out my phone. It was Yoongi. So it is like Yoongi saving his life in that kind of way. I love this, but it is so dark and it is so sad to see like it written from their perspectives, because you really do put yourself in their shoes and imagine them saying it, and they get really sad, and it's just like, Okay, everybody, so that is going to do it for the Love Yourself answer notes from the storyline. We got both of the Hyung line and the maknae line down here. Lots of dark stuff. This more so is just for me to read it for the first time. Like I always say, I will go back, and whenever I do my revisit, I'm going to try my best to reread it all, at least compile what I can into a timeline before reading the webtoon and the notes book. See what I can figure out, but then get the ultimate real answer, because I have no idea what's going on. But I hope that you guys enjoyed this and it wasn't too painful to watch both these videos. But if you did, make sure you click like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll be back with more videos in the future soon. I love y'all. Bye. Would love to know them by name. So